We're going to talk about what happens when you're a leader or we're in a company and things don't go right. So at times it's going to be a little uncomfortable because we're going to talk about the times when you think you have the answers and you don't, or you go to launch a product and it fails, or your company's going under. The times when you look at leadership in a very different way. And what I found is the leaders who handle things when they go wrong are the ones who themselves and their companies are stronger. So we're looking at resilience, but it's your own resilience, your team's resilience, or your company's resilience. We're going to look at it from a corporate perspective this morning. 21 million people were fired from their jobs. Sounds like a big number, 21 million people fired from their jobs. In that same year, 40 million people quit their jobs. Almost double the number of people quit their jobs for lots of different reasons. They could have maybe had a great offer elsewhere and jumped, or maybe they just got tired of what they were doing and they left, or maybe they just thought it was all too hard and just quit. But they quit their jobs. And part of that is our responsibility as people who are leaders in companies and who are thinking big picture and trying to do hard things. We need these people to stick with us. How do we get these people to stick with us? If 40 million people a year are just, I quit, I'm gonna go try someplace else. All that hard work you did to get them in the company first, to hire and recruit them and get them here, to train them up, to get them to actually understand your system, which takes months to even figure out how to work within your code and what you're working on. And now they last a short amount of time and then they leave. How do we get around that? We're not doing a great job of it right now. So we've just made it easier for everybody, especially the people in this room, all the technology people. We've made technology so people don't have to work too hard. I mean, think about it. You don't have to be wrong for more than a few seconds because you can just Google it. You don't have to cook, like go shopping and cook. You can just order some food and they can either come to you already done and cooked or partially done and cooked or already measured, so you don't have to measure and worry about that and you can just put it together. Or you don't have to go shopping and stand in line and deal with that really snarky clerk at the line. You know, you just ordered on Amazon. Who's ordered something on Amazon? Everybody raise your hand and it shows up at your door. I get irritated if my credit card doesn't auto-populate, okay? I'm one of those people and we all know those people. But so we have just made life easier. We've just made it all so much simpler for people. And that's part of what we're fighting at a corporate level for hiring and for retaining and for creating this culture of a good culture, whatever you want to call that, some type of happiness factor that gets people to stay. Is it a beanbag chair? Is it free coffee? We need to teach people how to deal with stuff when it goes wrong. We need to get people to toughen up a little bit and handle difficulties. And the difficulties I call thises. So there's the big thises in life. These are the big ones. So you have a plan for your life, you're going down this road. The big thises in life are you get a divorce, you lose your job, your company goes under, you're diagnosed with a horrible disease. Those are big thises. They take your life in a new direction. There's not a way to keep going in that direction. Those big things are going to happen and they're going to take your life in a new direction. So everybody in your company probably going to have a big this in their life at some point. And then there's the capital T thises.
And after 12 years on the leadership team, leaves to do this.
So this is stand here and share with other people how you do that. How do you go from something that clearly defines you to something else and then have success again? How do you do it as a company? How do you do it as an individual? What is the secret sauce? And what I found was people kept coming to me and asking me what that answer was. And at first I would give this flippant answer like, oh, well, I was a gymnast. You fall on your head, you stand up and you go, ta-da, and you just keep dancing. But after a while, I needed a better answer than that. And my kids were getting older and going to college. And I thought, how do you really answer that question? So I went on this really deep research and search to figure it out. And the more I looked, I kept coming back to this one word. I wrote a book, put it out there. I got a lot of feedback on the book. I did a lot of phone calls and discussions with people and looked at leaders, looked at companies, looked at athletes at the highest level. What type of person, what is it that is the secret sauce that makes that happen? And the word I kept coming back to was resilience. And it's not just grit. It's not just persistence. It's not just keep moving forward. This is the definition of resilience from the Center for Resilience that they came up with, and I think it's the piece of this definition, the ability to learn and the adapt in a positive way, that are keys. It's different than grit. It's different than persistence. So this resilience piece is really, really fascinating. And for me, I like to break everything down super simple. That's the news person in me. I believe it's how you handle the thises. How you handle the thises is directly related to your success. Whether you're an individual, whether it's your team that has an issue or this, or whether it's your whole company that has an issue or this. How you handle the thises, the problems that arise, will define whether or not you have success or not. What's really important about this book is this page you're on, okay? All the pages ahead are blank. Nothing on them yet. You have ideas, but nothing's on them yet. The language you use, nothing is on those pages. So when you think of it this way, when something big happens, you can go, oh, I'm going to help define what this future looks like for me, for my company, right? You have the ability to do that. And you have to look at it sometimes when you're in the middle of something big. Say you have a data breach, or say you have one of your biggest customers file a complaint against you, and it's public. I mean, there's big stuff that happens when you're running a company. Or in your own personal life, you heard this as something, oh, you have a divorce, or something's happening with you. When you're in the middle of it, when that's happening, and you're pulling in all your teams, or you're trying to work through everything, it's really hard to see out of that space right now because you're in, not panic mode, but your brain's working overtime. So I do this thing I call my 5-year thinking. So you got to get yourself out of your own head and go, what is that going to look like down the road for me or for my company? That 5-year thinking, to put it in context of the big picture in your book. You know, if it's a big one, it may be a new chapter in your book. It may be harder to get out of, but it doesn't mean that it's going to sidetrack you forever for those big goals that you have. When you talk about something big happening in your life, it's sometimes difficult to figure out what piece of it do you own. When you're on the leadership team, you want to just jump in and kind of help wherever you can help, but what piece am I supposed to be helping with? And can I even help? I'm not an engineer. So sometimes when we would have big stuff going on, like a big system integration that didn't work, or an implementation with a client that they just had 5 different systems we were trying to pull into one and make the data talk to each other. It was just bigger than me, and I'm not an engineer, so how can I help? What is my part in that? Sometimes when you look at ownership and what part of this that you own, it's hard to do. So the analogy I used for this is be the CEO. So how many of you in here are actual CEOs? Excellent. All right. If you've been listening to a lot of podcasts and reading a lot of books, when I ask that question, all of you should raise your hand because you are the CEO of you. No one has more control over you, your vision, and your life than you do. So you have to become the CEO of you. What does a CEO do? He sets the vision, looks at all of his resources, analyzes what's working and what's not working. You know, if it's your own personal life, what friends are working and not working? Am I getting enough sleep? Am I getting the right food? Am I getting the right people in my life? Am I getting enough feedback? You are the CEO of you. So when something big goes wrong, your piece of it for your company, your piece of it for your responsibility is sometimes all about you looking at the big picture and going, what piece of this do I own and where can I affect change? What can I control? What can't I control? Ownership is really key because when you look at the things that you can control, like a CEO would, CEO cannot control the competition. The CEO cannot control some new product launch that he knew nothing about at another company. CEO can control what he has control of right then. So you, in your own mind, have to be the CEO of you in any situation and go, what can I control? What can't I control? And let's make a plan. So you can't do all of them. And this is really key. This is key for companies. And we did this from a leadership perspective. I can remember sitting in so many rooms, and so many ideas, and so much going on. How do we decide where to go and what mountain we're going towards? That's a tough one, especially when you have a room full of really talented people with great ideas. And this happens in companies. In your hyper-growth stage, when you have about 200 people, when you get to about 1,200 people, it's actually a smaller group of people who are making the decisions. You get all the feedback, and then you actually have to make some decisions in a room when you're in a leadership team. But at the beginning, when I got to Benefit Focus, we had about 200 people. And so there were so many great ideas, and it was almost a harder way to lead because you had to have somebody who was really strong to go, okay, I'm going to pick this mountain and this vision, and I know there's a lot of great ideas, and we're going to do this piece, okay? So how do you get from this, where you're drinking 2 coffees a day for 109 years and you die and you never get to where you're going, to maybe just narrow it down. all these great ideas. You're going to have to pick a handful. You're going to have to pick, maybe it's just lattes. You're just going to have to pick a handful and go in that direction. And when you go in that direction with this handful, this is the trick. This is really difficult for smart people in a company. And so I can't stress this enough. When you narrow it down, you cannot keep looking at all the coffees you didn't choose. He who chases two rabbits catches none. You have to choose one. And I like to do this literally, like picture it, okay? You step in a field, and even if you're like a ninja athlete and you're super trained, and they put down two rabbits in front of you, and they let them go, I mean, you may be able to pounce and get one and chase it around, but the chances of catching both rabbits before they run away is really not real. It's not going to happen. He who chases two rabbits catches none. You have to choose a rabbit, and you have to go after it. It's going to move, and it's going to, you have to. And as a company, as an individual, if you have big goals and big stuff you want to do, you got to do that. And as a company, you have to choose one too. Do you think that she's saying, oh, Mommy had a bad quarter, and she's not very smart, and she works with a bunch of idiots, and we're probably going to have to lose our home, and I might have to cancel Christmas? No, that is not what Mommy is saying. Mommy's probably saying, oh, Mommy's a little grumpy because work is tough, but Mommy's smart and she works with smart people and we're going to be fine. It's not like we're going to have to cancel Christmas or anything. We need to talk to ourselves individually in a kinder way, or like you're talking to a child. And we need to keep this in mind when we're talking about things that go wrong in our companies. And this is the self-sabotage. And this is not just crisis management, if you're looking at it from a company perspective. This is the self-sabotage that we're doing to ourselves and our teams. So we overgeneralize. This always happened to our department. This always happens to me. They always throw all this stuff at us. Or we catastrophize. This is never going to work. We are ruined. This is the worst thing ever. We are ruined. Done. And we spend time having these conversations, and we've all done this. But the energy we spend on this and the language that we use on this is just keeping us from getting to where we're going. And if you are using this language and it's coming out of your mouth, that's a problem. Because you start the echo. So if something big happens in your company and it's a mess, and you go, this is a disaster. This is horrible. We're never going to get through this. Oh my gosh. And then they hear you say this out loud. And then your team hears you say it out loud. And your team takes it out to other people. They say it out loud. And the word is disaster. This is a mess. They go to the next person, it's a disaster. It's a mess. Then you go to a bar that night. You're walking through there with your husband and your wife. And then you hear some people at the bar like, oh, did you hear that team had a disaster? It's a mess. Okay? That's how that works. You create. How about this? Something big happens. You're like, whoa, didn't see that coming. That's going to be a challenge. We're going to have to get on this. And then your team goes, we've got a big challenge. It's going to have to get on this. And then their teams and people are walking through the parking lot. Did you hear that? There's a challenge. They're going to have to get on this. And then you walk through the bar that same night with your spouse, and you hear people at the, some young people at the counter talking who report down the road from you somewhere, and they're like, oh yeah, their team has this big challenge they're having to handle. Very different. Same situation. The really big this has become part of your story, but they're just part of it. The capital thises will be a page turner. There will be a whole new chapter and take you in a new direction for you or your company. But then the capital T thises and the other ones will be something you might mention, and then all those everyday thises, all those little ones, they don't even fit in your book. You're not even going to make it into your book. So the time and energy you're spending on those is only keeping you from where you want to go. And on the first page of your book, first page of your company's story, there's zero resilience. We're not born with it. Resilience is not, you don't come out either resilient or not. Resilience is something that we build like a muscle. And we need to flex it and we need to use it. You as your company and your culture needs to use that muscle. And that's what I challenge you today. So when some big this happens, or some little this, in the weeks to come, something happens to you. Some this that is on your mind and you're thinking, how do I get past? Put it in the context of your book. Where does it fit in? Assign some language to it, and then know that you're in control of where it goes in the future.